everybody, and welcome to AZAAZ, Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho. This used to be part of the CRM Zen show. We would have a little Q&A at the end. It got so popular, we've now moved it to our own show. So this is Volume 1, Episode 1. And we're going to expand it. So rather than just Tyler and I doing our thing, we now are bringing in some people who really know what they're doing. We've got Greg and Josh with us. So they'll be helping us answer some of these questions. And with that, we've always got our trusted producer, Freddie, on the back end. Freddie, why don't we kick this thing off and start with our first question? All right, Laverne is asking, why use a Loom embedded video versus using Zoho Annotator? Video that is saved in WorkDrive, the MP4 or WEBM offered should allow for the video also to be embedded from the CRM. It's a really good question, Laverne. And I think this is actually referring to the CRM Zen show where we were talking about one of our implementations of the week, Tyler, where we actually were automatically embedding a Loom video into an email. So guys, why use that over WorkDrive? Because we've also been singing the praises of WorkDrive's recording capabilities a lot.
Yeah, really, it's odds and ends things. You could recreate most of this process using the new kind of WorkDrive Snap feature that's in WorkDrive v4. In this case, we use Loom. It does have a couple kind of nice features. People can comment on things a little easier. You're able to do the kind of snip out editing on the fly before you send it out. So there's like a couple little odds and ends features on the Loom side. But you're definitely right. The core steps of this process could definitely be recreated using WorkDrive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also, my favorite thing about Loom is probably the ease of being able to create a Loom just by clicking a button in my top little tab. I can have a Loom video created or start creating it in a second and then have that actually embedded in an email in 30 seconds. So that's the biggest reason why I love using Loom.
Yeah.
Hopefully WorkDrive will come up with an extension like that as well.
Yeah.
All righty, let's move on to the next question. All right, Mashinoid asks, can't we add a score column in the leads view and then sort it as descending or ascending? That would help a lot when glancing through leads all together. And that was how to set up scoring rules inside Zoho CRM, which was a tip that we did.
Yeah, and this one, I may have mentioned it in that video, but over the course of 2022, Zoho made a lot of changes to how scoring in CRM works. They added a lot of new features to it, right? Positive scores, negative scores. But one little issue with their implementation is that it did kind of remove total score as like a field that could be used inside of list views. They have since solved that. And so if it's not showing up for you, I would reach out to Zoho support. They might need to activate it for your account. But it should be a pretty quick solve when you reach out to their support team.
All right, and now let's take a look at our next question. So Ahmed, after watching 5 key things to know about integrating Zoho CRM and Zoho Books, says, when I integrate Zoho CRM and Zoho Inventory, I do not see the stock quantities in the CRM. Is there a way to see those?
Brett, I can take this one.
Go ahead.
So, unfortunately, those do not natively come over into the CRM with the built-in integration, but they are still accessible via API. So if you're willing to invest some time in writing some custom functions, you can get those viewable in the CRM. And actually, if we pull up my screen right now, this is me looking at the API documentation for Zoho Inventory. And there is an API call that you can do called retrieve an item. So if you, on your CRM record, you have your product, you can use the ID of that product, find that product in books, and then use this API call to get back a list of a bunch of different attributes about the item, including, and let me get nice and zoomed in for y'all, you can find things like the initial stock, as well as the current stock on hand, the available stock, actual available stock. So you can grab those and either write them back to the CRM on the product record, or if you know how to do some XML related lists, which is a pretty advanced functionality, but still a nice one for if you have, in particular, a lot of items, then you can create something that will pull this information and display it on the record as a related list. So doable, but does take some heavy lifting.
And we see that a decent amount of time where within the native Zoho app integrations, they cover like 90%, right, of what you might want to do. But there are those times where we got to patch on a little custom functionality.
Alrighty, and the next question. This comes to us from George, and he watched the video post title. This was actually from, I believe, Club Zenatta. It was linking notes and multiple contacts in households in CRM. He has my contacts or individual clients. In some cases, clients and spouses, making them a household. When I type a note regarding a client, I like to be able to connect that note to both contacts. In my old CRM, I can simply type @spouse, and the note is automatically associated with the spouse in addition to the current contact. I can't seem to do that in Zoho CRM or even link a note to multiple contacts. Am I missing something? Can this be done in CRM? We get this question a lot, guys. This comes
Yeah.
especially like insurance agents and things like that, or realtors where they kind of want to link a spouse. And there are some workarounds for this. Yeah, Tyler?
Yeah, we kind of talked about a couple different options. I think Josh is with the best. I mean, you can create a lookup field from one contact to another and define it as a spouse. And you could get fancy and write some custom functions where notes are copying back and forth and edits are, copying back and forth. But really the cleanest way to do it would be to use the CRM accounts module to kind of serve as like a household and have the notes roll up there. So I actually do have a screen share if we want to kick over to that, Freddie. So I'm just in one of our demo accounts, right? Like pretty simple instance, not very customized. But I've set up here in our accounts what we're calling the Smith household. I've got two contacts underneath, Susie and John Smith. So if I open up one of those contacts, so now I'm in John specifically, and I leave a note on the John Smith contact, that's going to save here, obviously, in that contact itself. But when we go to the account, we'll also see that note rolls up. And so, the same thing would happen here if I did a note on the other contact. That is also just going to roll right on up to that account or even household if you want to rename it record. It'll also do the same thing with any like open tasks, meetings that are scheduled, things like that. So when you have these relationships between contacts, oftentimes it's best to try to nest them under an account just because a lot of that sharing and kind of data transparency is going to happen automatically. And you don't have to have someone write a bunch of code that's like copying meetings back and forth, but really only one meeting, only one note actually occurred. So that'd probably be our recommendation here. We've done this type of thing for real estate clients before, or people in insurance, right, that don't work B2B, that have more of like people and their spouse that they need to track. And it does work pretty well.
All righty. And let's take our next question. So Paul is asking, this also comes from Club Zenatta. If you're not familiar, club.zenatta.com, that is our online community. You can ask us questions, engage with other Zoho users. So head on over there. Anyway, Paul left this question here. Is it possible to generate a printout of a formatted document that is generated from the data from a Zoho form or Zoho survey with images included, where I can control the size of these images? Paul, we kind of shorten your question here to get to the crux of it, but this is something we see a lot and something that can very much be done. So I think, Josh, you're going to take a swag at this one.
Yeah, I got a quick answer, and sadly, it's not easily done, especially with Zoho Forms and Zoho Surveys. It is possible. The tricky part is getting the images to format inside of that mail merge. Unfortunately, Forms and Surveys, they don't have a direct integration with Zoho Writer. So you're not able to do a mail merge straight from those data. Now, you could trigger a webhook to Flow, which could then push that data into a mail merge template. That's one method. Or you could also consider using Zoho Creator in a similar fashion, where when Creator form is submitted, it just triggers a workflow directly into Writer. And so I've done similar implementations for clients, and we've been able to merge a document with up to 100 photos using data from a form entry inside of Creator. And then once you have that inside of Creator or inside of Writer, then you can certainly uh, format those photos. And generally, you probably want to use a subform inside of the Writer mail merge templates so that it's just one repeated photo. But there's limitations and other ways around that if you had specific format you're trying to get to. But the quick answer is it's not easily done with forms and survey. You do have to use some custom function or flow to get it to work.
And if you drop everything into the CRM, Josh, I imagine from the CRM you could generate the same thing, right? It'd be a whole separate deal, right? From form survey to CRM, then from CRM, maybe create a button that would automatically create the document from all the images and everything in the CRM.
Yeah, it's similar. The trick though is to make sure that that image is a public URL. You can't use a image that's attached inside of the CRM because there's not a public URL that can be merged into a writer template. So it does have to be a public image. And with Creator, what's nice is you can take an image upload and create a public URL from that image that can then feed into a writer template. So that's the trick there is getting that public URL and then pushing that into a merge template.
Yeah, it sounds like Creator solves the big tricky part, right? Which is basically taking that image that's a file and converting it into something that's embeddable, right? Without that, you have to plug something else in to solve for that, and things get a lot more complicated.
So then,
Exactly.
quick follow-up question about that, Josh, does that raise any like data security issues? As far as because if it is a public URL, theoretically somebody could just be kind of scraping the internet and find those images somewhere.
That's a good question. There is an encrypted key that you have to pass into that public URL. So as long as they don't have access to that encrypted key, then your data is secure. So obviously keep that key secure. And that's just kind of a general case. A general note is always keep your encrypted keys and secret keys secure. But that is protected through a public URL.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to the next question. All right, George, after watching the Zoho Learn full product tutorial from last year, asked, is it possible to host a web help in Zoho Learn, such as Madcap or Help Studio? And those are two kind of software programs that overlay on top of a website where you're kind of directing people through the overall process. And I know we looked into this a little bit, guys. What did we find out?
Unfortunately, no go. Not really much else to say other than it just unfortunately doesn't work, at least not yet in any way that we've been able to nail down.
Not how you're thinking, right? Where it's actually overlaid in the web app as they're going through it. You could surely record video walkthroughs of an app and host them and organize them and learn and do that, but it's not going to embed itself into another application as a training tool.
Right.
All righty, and our next question. All right, this one also comes from Club Z, and Lucas is asking, in campaigns, how do you generally decide whether to use an autoresponder or a workflow? I understand that one can do each, but there are a few things that could be done in both. For example, those listed on Club Z, and he gave us a very, very, very long list of all of the various things he was looking to do. What's our answer on this, guys?
I mean, I'm interested to see. I don't think I've talked to Josh or Greg about this, so I'll give my answer and I'll see if they agree with me. I would say if you can do it with the workflow, do it with the workflow. So like I know one of the examples is like on a date, we want to do a certain thing. I would do that with the workflow, right? I mean, I guess the only outlier is I know autoresponders can do like birthday notifications. I think they have like one little pre-baked thing that works real well for birthday notifications. But I mean, I would think unless Josh or Greg disagree with me, like if you can do it in a workflow, do it there. My understanding is that Zoho wants to move almost all the functionality from autoresponders into workflows. So I would say you should be pretty future-proof building there.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you can do it in a workflow rule, do it there. You mentioned the birthday because that's one specific one you can't do inside of a workflow rule. So I've helped clients set that up through autoresponders. I think there's a few other like RSS feed type of workflow rule or autoresponders and some niche ones that you might have to just stick with autoresponder. But you're right. If it's shared between, or if you can do it in both, then just stick with workflow rules. It'll just be easier and consolidates your workflows into one space.
So I guess is there not a way to set up like a segment tag that looks at current date or something?
Not easily. It becomes like a big workaround where like you need to have their birthday, and then one day after their birthday, you'd have another field for like birthday of current year, and then it needs to keep resetting itself, and then you use that to enter the segment. So like if you just really didn't want to touch an autoresponder, you could do that. But generally speaking, yeah, it's so easy to do it that way that you don't really have much of a reason of doing a workaround.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to the next question. And this comes from watching our Zoho Books full product tutorial in 2022. How can we process progressive invoicing in Zoho Books? This is something we get asked a lot. It's a matter of fact, if you go to Zenatta.com and you click on resources and you click on Zoho Books, you'll notice it's in the maybe column. And when you click into there, we do our pros and our cons. And one of our big cons is that Zoho Books really just doesn't do progress billing. But there are some workarounds, guys, correct?
Yeah, you kind of can, like you can, let's say you had a deal in CRM and you invoiced for the initial payment off of that, and you had the total payment amount on the deal. You could say, hey, when we finish certain percents of a related project, maybe we've got some piece of code that like makes that next invoice. You could also look at nesting those invoices under a Zoho Books project, which gives you some idea of like the invoiced amount versus the total. But it's not going to work how you would kind of expect it to if you've done progress billing in other accounting tools. It's one of the most kind of common requests for Zoho to work on in terms of Zoho Books improvements.
But you
Because it
can
is.
do,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, but you can do like, you can, by using the CRM and the methodology you're talking about, you can kind of send what looks like a project invoice, but it's not in fact an invoice, right? It's got the payment link, it's got everything in there. It's showing them the starting amount, it's showing them the amount they've paid. It's doing all, you're basically generating that off of a mail merge template and automatically sending them what they think is a Zoho invoice. It is an invoice for all intents and purposes, but it's not one generated by Zoho Books. And then in Books, it's actually got the standalone invoice for that little chunk, right? I mean, it's kind of one way to kind of get around it is,
The
send it
challenges
straight to
end
the
up being
invoice.
sometimes the accounting side as well. They want to know
Yes.
that these are like open future receipt. That's the part where it gets a little dicey. Like workflow wise, you can make it work in Zoho, right? Because most things workflow wise, you can get them to work. But yeah, sometimes it gets into the accounting nitty gritty, and yeah, it doesn't quite hold as sound as we'd like it to.
Yeah. And Shabazz, this is one
Yeah.
of the biggest reasons I think when we talk to a lot of construction companies, it just won't work. So it's because
Yeah.
so much construction and remodeling and all those kind of things, it's all based upon, progress billing. So, all right, next question.
You can accept partial payments on an invoice, but
Mhm.
you got to trust they're going to pay it in the right order.
Exactly. All right, CRM Zen Show, episode 242. It's a Zerd, it's a Zlane, it's a Zaz, which was our announcement for this show. Praveen asked, is it possible in Zoho CRM to insert values in subforms using Deluge?
You know what? It is. You certainly can. So when it comes to inserting subform values, basically all you need to do is if you can still use just the zoho.crm.update record as long as you find the API name for the subform, and then inside of that variable needs to be a list of maps or a JSON array of various JSON objects where each object inside corresponds to an entry that you want to add to the subform. Now, subforms are very unique in that when you are updating a subform, if you're just inserting brand new records, not really much to worry about. You just create the rows and then they're in there. if a subform already does have some information in it, if you want to update a particular row, you have to include the ID of that subform row in your update map. Otherwise, the that data will get. It used to delete stuff, but now it actually just adds on as a new row uh, to the subform. So you could end up with duplicate data, which
Got it.
I guess Zoho figures is better than double data is better than no data.
Yes, I agree.
Snow Dad's better than no dad, in the words of Jack Frost. Anybody remember that Michael Keaton movie? Yes? No? Anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, actually, there's one caveat. If you send a totally empty JSON list, then it will delete everything in the subform.
So you have
But
to
if
be
you just have
careful when you do this,
some
Greg.
data, yeah. What's that?
You have to be careful.
You do have to be careful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
if I were you, read the API documentation on it, because they actually have a lot of notes in there that talks about all these different caveats that you need to take into consideration.
And subforms have come a long way. It's interesting. I almost feel like they're treated like mini modules in their own way, right? You kind of report on them that way. You look at them that way. I mean, it used to be you could do nothing with them when they first came out in 2019, but they've kind of come. They've come a long, long way, and you can do a heck of a lot more with them. So, Michael Keaton reference for you, Greg. Name the movie. Feed mayonnaise to the tuna fish.
That's got to be Multiplicity, right?
No, it was a Night Shift. Night Shift.
Ah,
Henry Winkler, Michael Keaton. Yes, he's an idea man. He's an idea man.
that's true.
Just cut one step right out of there. Just feed mayonnaise to the tuna fish. It's perfect. All right, next question. All right, Herbert, after watching Zoho CRM's subform integration and creation of module records from 2020, might be time to update that one, says, hey, how do I set up a connection to create a new record in a custom module based on records from a subform in a different module?
Through the wonders of Deluge.
Yep, the wonders of Deluge, exactly right. Now, I do have a screen share up that we can go to because looking at the video that they were asking the question on, could be that they were asking about how to actually set up the connection to update the subform. In case if that was the case, then I just wanted to show real quick that when you have a form in Zoho Forms that has a subform, you can then map that subform to a Zoho CRM subform. So, like if I had something on on the contacts, I have this thing called family subform, and then I can link that to my subform inside of my Zoho Forms. So that's how you would at least link those parts. And then afterwards, once you have all of this mapped out, you want to make sure that you have your automation and process management option checked on the form integration, so that then you could have a custom Deluge function that when this record gets created by the form, you then have Deluge grab that CRM record, iterate through the subform, and then create the subsequent records in the custom module. So,
I think what he's asking though is I was going to say, I think what he's asking is, I've got a contact record, and then I've created a custom module called widgets, and I've got a subform in that custom module, and I wanted to link that data over. Now you could link the custom module clearly over to the contact record, or I think as you were saying, Tyler, you could run some Deluge script to grab some stuff from there and put it into the contact record. Either way, right?
You'll need to use a for each, right? So if you trigger it, you'll need to say essentially for each record in my subform, which you'll need to define in your code, proceed and do these things, right? So you should have a create record inside that little for each block so that it will make one for each row essentially in your subform that you're processing. But other than that, other than the for each, Herbert, if you're relatively comfortable with Deluge, it would feel similar to making a normal record just in a script. You're just going to do it once for each of these records that are in a table.
Fantastic. And before we move to the next question, which is our last question, Josh has had a power failure. And how much battery life do we have left, Josh, before we lose you?
We are on 10%.
10%. Let's get this
Yeah,
question done.
Yeah.
done.
Good enough
All
for
right.
government work.
If Josh disappears, everyone will know why. All right. After watching our Zoho CRM tutorial from 2023, Gaurav asked, is it possible to automatically send out a series of emails in Zoho CRM based on the status of a record? First email on status change, and then 2 additional emails an hour apart. And it
Yep.
is.
So this is totally doable with CRM workflows. You need to make a decision on if these types of emails should go out through campaigns, but I'm assuming, right, we probably want to keep this in CRM for the context of this question. I can actually pull up a screen share on this one in our demo account because I'll actually just show you exactly how to do this with a workflow. So I'm going to use deals. My mind always goes to deals, but you could do this in a contact, a lead, an account, any record that you want to run an automation. So I've got a deal up. Let's say we want to do a thing, right? When this deal goes to closed won, we want to send some emails, create some tasks. So we can jump into setup and into the workflow rules section. I'm going to create a new rule and I'll pick it for that module, right? So in this case, I'm going to do deals. Give it a name. And go ahead and create it. And so now we'll basically be able to say what type of action do we want to trigger on. If we're going to trigger on like a status or a checkbox, then we'll use record action. We can say it should only be create if it's created or edited, I'll do create or edit here. This is a dangerous checkbox. That means it's going to trigger every time that it's edited forever while the criteria are true. So we're going to leave that off. Now we can say something like when it's created or edited, where stage is closed won. Right. And if you had a checkbox here, like let's say a newsletter opt-in checkbox, then you would say where checkbox is true. And then I can do all different kinds of things, right? So I could update fields, change owners, put tags. I can send emails, right? So these are going to need to be based on templates. But then the other part of it is that we can also do scheduled actions. So I could say 1 hour after that rule is triggered, let's send an email. And then another hour after, so for a total of 2 hours, we'll send another email, right, out to this lead or deal or contact or, wherever you need to send it. So this would be kind of your primary vehicle, would be these workflows. The reason I put both of these in is so I can highlight for you that the hours or days number in these delays is based on this original trigger. So this second one is not going to go out 3 hours later. It's going to go out 2. It doesn't care about this previous action at all.
And that first email he wants to send, Tyler, that would be an instant action, correct?
Yeah, if you wanted it to go out right now and then also an hour and then 1 more hour, it would look just like this. You would just need to obviously put in your email templates and make sure that your criteria are set up to match when you want to send this out.
One thing to also note, if that criteria ever just does not match and maybe an hour later that record gets changed and the stage is updated to something else, they're going to be removed from that workflow. So know that. And that's kind of a nice feature. So they're not getting hounded on emails that don't qualify.
Yeah,
Another
like if
quick
you accidentally
PSA
moved them to
is,
closed one.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, another quick PSA is make sure the email opt-out on that contact record has not been selected. If a contact has been opted out, they will not receive any of those automated workflows or really any emails from the CRM for that matter. So yeah, that's something we've been kind of struggling with recently is the email opt-out for some of these automated emails. But yeah, there's ways around that. You can reach out to Zoho and ask them to opt in a contact, or you can ask that contact for that permission and get that through the CRM as well.
Guys, I want to thank everyone for joining us on this initial Greg, Josh, Tyler. This has been fun. 2 weeks ago, I was in the shower and I said, ask Zenatta anything about Zoho in my head. And I said AZAAZ out loud. I got out of the shower and I'm yelling at my wife going, AZAAZ! And she's like, you've lost your mind. And then Freddie had a quick meeting with Tyler and I, and we said, boy, it kind of sounds like a superhero word. And here we are a mere 2 weeks later. So I think this is going to be a great addition to Zenatta. I hope everybody has enjoyed this show and gets so much out of it. I think it's better than what we were doing, Tyler. with the Q&A.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
nice to
kind of
have this
nice.
extra time to really give the questions their due, be able to screen share. So let us know what you think. We're always open to feedback. Let us know if there's something you guys want us to really dive in on even more.
Fantastic. All right, everybody, thank you so much. And as always, if you would like to get a hold of any of us over here at Zenatta, you can head over to zenatta.com and click on Book a Meeting.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes of our podcast, The CRM Zen Show, where we cover all the news in the world of Zoho every single week. We'd love if you'd subscribe to our newsletter to get that delivered to your inbox every Monday, and subscribe to us here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you next Wednesday for our next episode of AZAAZ.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, be sure to go to Club Zen. Easiest way to get a question on this show.
Absolutely.